moment that you have this this high-performance sports car.
Right, a really premium machine.
Exactly. It's designed to run on the best, high-octane fuel, but for years you've been pouring sugar water into the tank.
Oh, that's a painful image.
The engine starts knocking, pistons get sticky, you've got smoke pouring out, you take it to the mechanic and they start replacing parts, adding filters.
Trying to rebuild the engine block while you're still pouring in the bad fuel.
But nobody ever suggests, hey, maybe stop at the sugar water.
That is a terrifying, but unfortunately very, very accurate analogy for what we're talking about today.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are exploring a concept that might just fundamentally change how you look at chronic disease, and specifically cancer.
It's a concept called metabolic modulation.
Right, and it asks a really provocative question. We've spent decades, billions of dollars, developing these incredibly sophisticated drugs to poison tumors, burn them, cut them out. But have we been ignoring the very environment that those tumors live in?
It's the difference between trying to put out a fire by spraying water on the flames versus asking why the house was soaked in gasoline in the first place.
Exactly. And to guide us through this, we're unpacking a book that is, well, it's equal parts medical manifesto and just a heart-wrenching memoir. It's called Any Way You Can
by Dr. Annette Bosworth, or as most people know her online, Dr. Boz.
And this book is so compelling because it doesn't read like some dry medical text.
No, it's a war story. It's about her battle to save her mother, Grandma Rose, who was 71 and facing a terminal diagnosis of leukemia.
A situation where traditional medicine had basically said, we're done, go home, get comfortable.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack the science behind her approach. We're going to look at how nutritional ketosis, which, let's be honest, most people think of as a weight loss fad.
Right, just for weight loss.
And actually act as an adjuvant, a helper to oncology. We've got Dr. Boz's book, of course, but we've also pulled some pretty dense papers on cellular energetics, data from the 2024 ASH meeting.
That's the American Society of Hematology. And even some fascinating case studies on Alzheimer's.
And we absolutely have to talk about the metrics. We're going to explain the Dr. Boz ratio, which is a way of kind of gamifying this whole metabolic shift.
But before we get to the how-to, and yes, the sardines, we will get to the sardines.
We have to.
We have to understand the mechanism. Why would changing what you eat have any impact on a tumor?
Yeah. Because on the surface, it sounds a little too simple, right? Stop eating carbs, starve the cancer. Is it really that black and white?
Biology is almost never black and white. But there is an incredibly strong signal here, and it all hinges on something called the Warburg effect.
Okay, the Warburg effect. This isn't some new fringe science either.
Not at all. Otto Warburg won a Nobel Prize for this discovery back in 1931.
1931.
Yeah.
So we've known about this for almost 100 years, and yet I feel like I never hear about it.
Well, we got a bit distracted by the genetic revolution. We spent 50 years looking for the cancer gene. But Warburg, he discovered this fundamental metabolic quirk in cancer cells. Think of your healthy cells, your muscles, your brain, as hybrid vehicles.
Hybrids. Okay, I like that analogy. Break it down for me.
A hybrid car can run on gas or it can run on electricity. Your healthy cells are metabolic hybrids. If you feed them glucose, sugar, they burn it for energy. If you take away the sugar and give them fat or ketones, they switch gears effortlessly.
Yeah.
And they burn that instead. They're flexible.
So they can adapt, but cancer cells are not hybrids.
Many of them aren't. No. What Warburg saw was that cancer cells often have damaged mitochondria.
The little power plants of the cell.
Exactly, the power plants. And because of that damage, they lose that hybrid flexibility. They get locked into this really primitive form of energy production called fermentation.
And for that, they need glucose. They become sugar addicts.
Total sugar addicts. So even if there's plenty of oxygen around, which healthy cells use to burn fat really efficiently, cancer cells will still choose to ferment sugar.
It's called aerobic glycolysis.
That's the one. It's inefficient, it's dirty, but it's fast. And it demands a huge constant supply of glucose.
So the strategy Dr. Boz is proposing, it's basically a supply chain intervention.
Precisely. It's a siege. If the enemy army runs on sugar, you cut the supply line. If you deprive the body of, external glucose, meaning you stop eating carbs, the body has to adapt.
Okay.
The liver starts breaking down triglycerides into fatty acids, and then it converts those into ketone bodies. And the real star of the show here is beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB.
I saw BHB mentioned everywhere in our sources. It's almost talked about like it's a pharmaceutical drug itself.
In many ways, it acts like one. It's a signaling molecule, not just fuel, but just sticking to the fuel part for a second. When you make that switch, Your healthy cells love BHB. Your brain actually runs cleaner on it.
It's a better fuel source.
A much better fuel source.
Yeah.
Like switching from diesel to jet fuel. But the cancer
They
cells,
choke on it.
they struggle immensely. They often lack the enzymatic machinery to even process ketones. So you create this environment where your healthy cells are thriving and protected, while the cancer cells are starving and under incredible metabolic stress.
But there's another layer to this, right? It's not just about the fuel. I was reading the section on insulin, and this, for me, this was the real aha moment.
Oh, yeah.
We think of insulin as the blood sugar hormone. You eat a bagel, insulin goes up, sugar goes into your cells, end of story. But in cancer, it's doing something much more dangerous.
It is. We have to reframe how we look at insulin.
Yeah.
As an anabolic driver.
Anabolic meaning to build up.
Exactly. Building up. When insulin is high, it's a signal for the body to store energy and to grow tissue, and it triggers the release of something called IGF-1.
Insulin-like growth factor 1. And growth factor sounds like the last thing you want when you have a tumor.
Exactly. IGF-1 is a potent mitogen. It encourages cells to divide. But, and this is crucial, it inhibits apoptosis.
Apoptosis is programmed cell death.
Right. It's the body's quality control. It looks at a cell that's broken or mutated and says, okay, your time is up. Self-destruct.
But high insulin is basically sending out a system-wide broadcast to every cell in the body saying, don't die, keep growing, keep building.
You got it. It creates a pro-growth environment. That is the absolute dream scenario for a tumor.
Wow.
So the Bosworth protocol and ketogenic therapies in general, their goal is to crash that insulin signal. You want to shut down this specific signaling pathway called PI3K-mTOR.
That's the grow signal.
That is the growth signal. You want to turn that off so the body can finally switch into repair mode.
Okay, so that's the theory. High fat, zero carb, crash the insulin, starve the tumor. But let's bring this back down to earth. Let's talk about Grandma Rose. Because for her, this wasn't an academic exercise. This was life or death.
It was. And the context here is everything. Grandma Rose was 71. She had a recurrence of lymphocytic leukemia. She'd already been through, she'd been through the ringer with chemo years before.
Her body was just beat up.
Her bone marrow was exhausted. The doctors looked at her blood work and basically said her body cannot take another round of toxic treatment.
It was palliative care time, which usually means, morphine and waiting.
Right. But Dr. Boz, and this is her stepping in as a daughter, not just as a physician, she just couldn't accept that. So she decided to try this aggressive metabolic intervention.
And aggressive is the right word. This wasn't just cutting back on dessert.
Oh, no. This was inducing a deep state of ketosis, like immediately.
And the result, the way the book tells it, they were just startling. After 6 weeks of strict ketosis, and this is important, she refused a third round of chemo.
Yes.
Her cancer markers dropped by 30%.
That is the part that usually stops people in their tracks. No chemo, just ketosis, and the numbers went down. But we have to be really careful and nuanced here.
Right, this isn't a magic wand.
It's not. It's not that the diet cured the cancer in a vacuum. The sources talk about a concept called sensitization.
Okay, what's that?
The idea is that the metabolic stress from ketosis makes the tumor cells weaker. They become vulnerable. So whatever immune response the body can still manage, or whatever treatment is still around, becomes exponentially more effective.
It reminds me of that data from the 2024 ASH meeting that was in our research. They were looking at CAR T-cell therapy, which is this super advanced immunotherapy.
Yes, that was such a fascinating connection. The research showed that beta-hydroxybutyrate, that ketone body we keep mentioning, it actually boosted the effectiveness of the CAR T-cells.
It made the immune cells stronger.
It made them fitter. It gave them more energy to go hunt down the tumor. So you're seeing this convergence of, ancient biological mechanisms like fasting and ketosis, amplifying our most cutting-edge 21st century medicine.
It is the ultimate biohack. But let's be real, tracking this stuff is hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
If you've ever tried a keto diet, peeing on the stick is one thing, but really knowing if you're in a therapeutic zone is something else. And Grandma Rose was elderly and sick. She's not going to be doing complex math.
And that's a huge barrier in a clinical setting. Usually researchers use something called the glucose ketone index, or GKI.
Right.
And to calculate that, you have to take your glucose in mgdl, convert it to mmol, which means dividing by 18, and then divide that by your ketone number.
Yeah, my brain just shut off. And if you're sick, that's enough to make you just quit.
It's too much friction.
Yeah.
So Dr. Boz popularized the Dr. Boz ratio, and it is so elegant in its simplicity.
Okay, what is it?
You take your glucose number in mgdl, and you divide it by your ketone number. That's it. No conversion.
That's it. So if my glucose is 80 and my ketones are 1.0, my ratio is 80.
Your ratio is 80. Simple as that.
So what do the numbers mean? It's almost like a video game score.
It is gamified, which is psychologically brilliant for a patient who feels like they have no control. The sources break it down into these tiers. So if your ratio is under 80, you're in a good maintenance mode. Low insulin, probably losing some weight.
Okay.
You get under 40, you're entering immune repair. That's where brain fog lifts, inflammation really starts to drop.
And then there's the big one, the Grandma Rose target, under 20.
Under 20 is the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
This is where you trigger deep autophagy.
Let's define that, because it sounds like a sci-fi term.
Autophagy literally means self-eating. It's your body's cellular cleanup crew.
Right.
When you're that restricted on fuel, the body starts scavenging. It finds damaged proteins, dysfunctional parts of cells, and crucially, potentially precancerous cells, and it breaks them down to recycle them for energy.
So for Grandma Rose, the daily goal was just to keep that score under 20. It gave her agency.
Did it?
Instead of just waiting for a doctor to tell her how she was doing, she could prick her finger and know, okay, I'm winning the metabolic war today.
It's so empowering for the patient. But getting to a ratio of 20, that is not easy.
No.
You don't get there by just skipping breakfast. If your glucose is 80, you need a ketone reading of 4.0. That is elite-level ketosis.
You definitely don't stumble into that. Which I guess leads us to implementation. The sources talk about some pretty extreme ways to jumpstart this. One of them is the sardine fast.
Ah, yes, the infamous sardine fast.
I have to ask, why sardines? Is it just to make you so miserable you don't want to eat anymore?
There is a method to the madness. It's a 72-hour challenge where you eat nothing but sardines packed in olive oil. Medically, it does two things.
Yeah.
One, it's pure fat and protein. Zero carbs. So you rush the body into ketosis.
Okay.
Two, the sources mentioned resetting the microbiome, but I think there's a huge psychological piece to it.
Dr. Boz calls it being fat forward. Right?
Exactly. Fat forward. You eat fat first to kill your appetite. If you're full of sardines and olive oil, your satiety hormones are screaming that you're full. You are not craving a donut.
It breaks your emotional connection with food. You're just eating for fuel.
That's it. But the transition can be really rough. We have to warn people about that.
Absolutely. The keto flu.
The keto flu is real. When you drop insulin, your kidneys dump a lot of water and sodium. So you get headaches, fatigue, heart palpitations.
So how do you manage that?
The protocol relies heavily on exogenous ketones, so BHB salts, and a lot of magnesium to bridge that gap. You have to support the body while it's learning to switch fuel systems.
Okay, now we need to pause here and address the elephant in the room. Because when you look up Dr. Boz, you don't just find medical advice, you find a pretty dramatic legal history. And our sources were very clear about this.
It's an unavoidable part of the context.
Right.
Dr. Bosworth is not your typical buttoned-up academic. She was a rising star in South Dakota, won a White House Award for Health Tech.
Right.
But then she ran for U.S. Senate in 2014, and things, they went off the rails.
She was convicted of felonies, right?
She was. In 2015, convicted of filing false instruments. It was about her nominating petitions for her ballot access. Basically, she witnessed signatures when she wasn't physically present.
So, to be clear, this had nothing to do with her medical care or harming a patient.
No, not at all. But it was a felony. And because of that, she lost her medical license in South Dakota.
Which is a massive career-ending blow for most people.
And it highlights this tension you see a lot. On one side, you have established medical governance, which values protocol legality. And on the other, you have this maverick energy.
And she pivoted. She reinvented herself through digital media, through education.
She did, and eventually moved to Florida to practice what she calls meaningful medicine. It seems like that outsider status actually appeals to the biohacking community.
The sources mention she credits Tim Ferriss, the podcaster, with saving her life.
Yes. Ferriss is a big proponent of keto for things like Lyme disease and cognitive performance. Dr. Boz kind of bridges that gap between the performance optimization bros and the very real clinical needs of someone like Grandma Rose.
It's a fascinating, if messy, intersection.
It is.
And speaking of intersections, this isn't just about cancer. The sources mentioned a case study from 2023 in Frontiers in Psychiatry.
This was a really poignant case. A woman with Down syndrome and Alzheimer's.
And we know that Alzheimer's is often called type 3 diabetes.
Meaning the brain itself becomes diabetic.
It becomes insulin resistant.
Exactly. The brain loses its ability to process glucose. So even if you have plenty of sugar in your blood, your neurons are literally starving. They're running on fumes.
But ketones provide a loophole.
They're the backdoor fuel source. They use a different transporter to get into the cell. And the study showed that by using a ketogenic diet, they could rescue that glucose hypometabolism.
Mm-hmm.
The patient's cognitive engagement improves significantly.
So it suggests this approach has legs way beyond cancer. It's about energy resilience for the brain.
Absolutely.
I want to circle back to Grandma Rose to close out the narrative, because in these stories, especially in the wellness world, we always want the Hollywood ending. We want to hear that she did the keto diet, the cancer vanished, and she's still running marathons. But that's not what happened here.
No, it's not. Grandma Rose passed away on October 25th, 2020. And I think it's crucial that we look at that honestly.
Right, because does that mean the protocol failed? Some critics might say, see, she died anyway.
And I would argue that completely misses the point. Remember, she was given a terminal diagnosis with a very short prognosis before they started any of this.
She lived for 4 more years.
4 more years. And crucially, there weren't years spent wasting away in a hospital bed.
No.
She was traveling, she was spending time with family, she was lucid. The sources talk about this concept of squaring the curve.
What does that mean?
In modern medicine, we often extend life, but it's a long, slow, painful decline. We keep the body alive, but the quality of life is very low.
Right.
Squaring the curve means you stay healthy and high functioning for as long as you possibly can, and then have a very rapid decline at the very end. You essentially die healthy.
She reclaimed her time. She fought, like the title says, any way she could.
And that brings us right back to the central thesis. Our metabolic health, how we fuel our cells, it's the foundation of everything. Whether you're fighting leukemia, trying to prevent Alzheimer's, or just trying to get through the workday without that 3 p.m. crash, the fuel matters.
So as we wrap up, what's the big takeaway here? We have the Dr. Boz ratio as a tool. We've got the science of insulin suppression. And we've got this complicated, really inspiring story.
For me, the takeaway is agency. Traditional medicine can sometimes make you feel very passive as a patient. Here's your pill, come back in 3 months. This approach, tracking your numbers, changing your diet, understanding your own physiology, it makes you an active participant in your own survival. It's empowering.
It really is. And I want to leave you with a thought that just kept nagging at me while I was reading through all the insulin research.
Go for it.
If insulin is a growth signal, a signal that tells things to get bigger and not to die, and our modern life is basically designed to keep our insulin permanently high.
With constant snacking, processed carbs, stress.
Are we essentially accidentally terraforming our own bodies to be the perfect environment for disease? We spend billions fighting the disease once it's here, but maybe the most powerful medicine is just changing the signal we send ourselves every time we eat.
It suggests the most potent prescription pad might just be the grocery list.
Something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.